winds of the north were never kind. They swept through the courtyards of Winterfell with a coldness that bit through wool and leather alike. But the cold that gripped Catelyn Stark now had little to do with winter. She stood in the godswood, staring at her husband as he cradled a newborn in his arms, the child swaddled in a bundle of furs, his tiny features barely visible beneath the folds. What if Ned Stark actually told Catelyn the truth about who Jon Snow really was? Let's take a look in this video. The child in Ned Stark's arms is bundled in cloth, small and quiet, while Catelyn Stark stands before him, face composed but eyes sharp. "Ned," she said, her voice tense and shaky. "Tell me whose child that is." He didn't speak at first. The stillness around them stretched thin with tension. Snowflakes drifted gently onto the child's blanket, melting against Ned's cloak. "He's not mine," Ned said finally, voice hoarse, weary. "At least, not as the world would think." Catelyn's brow furrowed. "You brought a child home, a bastard, and now you say he isn't yours?" "He bears my name," Ned replied, "so that no one will ask questions, so that no one ever comes looking for him." Catelyn's face was pale. "Then whose is he?" "He is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen," Ned said softly. "And my sister, Lyanna." The name struck like thunder. Catelyn staggered a step, her breath catching. "I found her at the Tower of Joy. She was dying. She made me swear to keep him safe, to protect him from Robert, from everyone who would kill him for who he is." "And you never told me?" Catelyn asked. "You thought I couldn't be trusted with the truth." "I was trying to protect you too," Ned said. "The fewer who knew, the better. But I'm telling you now, because I owe you more than silence." Catelyn stared at the child, who squirmed faintly in his furs. His eyes fluttered open dark, curious. The storm of emotions behind her eyes was impossible to name: betrayal, confusion, sorrow, but after a long moment, she exhaled and nodded once. "Then let the world believe he is your son. But between us, he is more than that. He is blood. He is family." And from that moment on, everything changed. Jon Snow grew up knowing kindness where there might have been coldness. Though publicly he was treated as any other bastard of noble birth, kept at the margins of feasts, excluded from titles within the walls of the family chambers, it was different. Catelyn never let her mask slip in public. She played the part of the wary noble lady, keeping her tone clipped when she addressed Jon in court. But in private, she ensured he was fed, clothed, educated like her own children. She watched the boy with careful eyes. He was Ned's mirror in some ways. The same quiet strength, the same unyielding sense of duty. The more she looked at him, the more she saw Lyanna's storm in his gaze. Robb and Jon were close, so close that many forgot they weren't true brothers. Arya was inseparable from Jon, and even Sansa, molded by the expectations of nobility, grew to respect him. But in the great halls of the North, perception mattered. Jon still sat low at banquets. He still heard whispers of his status, yet he bore it all with grace, never knowing that behind her stony exterior, Lady Catelyn defended him. "You will need him," she told Robb one night by the fire. "If the day ever comes that you lead this house, trust Jon. Trust him with your life." And Robb, ever dutiful, remembered those words. King Robert came to Winterfell with his royal procession, dragging with him the heat of the South and the weight of politics. Ned was asked to become Hand of the King, and after much hesitation, he accepted. Catelyn urged Jon to stay behind. "You are needed here, not in the capital," she said. "Robb will need you to help hold the North." Jon obeyed, and it was not long before the North bled. Bran fell from the tower. A cat's paw came in the night. Only Summer's intervention spared Bran's life. The dagger was Valyrian steel. Catelyn rode south, determined to find answers. She accused Tyrion Lannister, setting in motion the chain of war. Meanwhile, Ned uncovered a terrible truth that the royal children were not Robert's, but born of incest. Before he could act, he was betrayed, his men slaughtered. He was taken prisoner. News reached Winterfell. Jon stood at the gate with Robb when the Raven arrived. And then war. Robb raised the banners of the North. Lords answered. The direwolves howled. Jon remained behind to guard Winterfell, to protect Bran and Rickon. Catelyn left to treat with Riverrun and gather allies. The Riverlands burned under Lannister fire. Tywin Lannister moved his forces with brutal precision. But Robb proved his father's son. He struck fast, cutting off Lannister supply lines, winning loyalty through battle and justice. But then came the letter from King's Landing. Ned Stark was dead, executed on the steps of the Sept. Robb did not cry. He did not rage. He simply turned to his men and said, "We will never bow to a southern king again." The lords cheered. They named him king in the north. Jon, when he heard the news, felt pride but also fear. "Do you know what this means?" he said to Catelyn. "We stand alone." "Sometimes," she answered. "That is the only way to stand." With Robb at war in the Riverlands, Jon held Winterfell as the acting head of House Stark. Though not a true-born son, the trust given to him by Catelyn and Robb silenced many doubters. Bran and Rickon looked to him not as a half-brother, but as a guardian. When word came that a second Lannister force was assembling in the Crownlands, the threat was clear. The Riverlands would soon be caught between two fires. Robb had the loyalty of many great houses, but he lacked the strength to fight a war on two fronts. Jon counseled caution. Divide their forces. Deny them unity. Robb must keep Tywin distracted while we deny the East a path to him. Catelyn wrote to Robb, sending Jon's suggestions. And in battle, Robb listened. The young wolf split his army into swift-moving raiding parties. They struck quickly, vanishing before Lannister steel could strike back. The war turned into a game of shadows, and the Riverlords learned that Jon Snow's mind was as sharp as his blade. In King's Landing, Joffrey's madness grew bolder. Frustrated by his grandfather's failures to bring the North to heel, he made a spectacle of cruelty. Ned Stark was dragged before the Great Sept and executed in front of the crowd. His head was displayed outside the Red Keep, a warning to all. But the effect was not fear, it was fury. In the North, rage turned to resolve. The Lannisters had drawn blood too freely. Peace was no longer a goal, it was a betrayal. Robb refused to be baited. He kept his war focused and unyielding. But even as he won battles, the Lannisters changed the game. Tywin reached out to Balon Greyjoy. The Iron Islands had been silent for years, licking their wounds after Robert's rebellion. But Tywin offered them what they could never take alone: the North. He promised the Ironborn their ancestral lands if they raided the northern coast and kept Jon occupied. Balon agreed. Jon was first to act. With Catelyn's blessing, he raised levies from the northern houses and took to the coasts. Each time the Ironborn struck, Jon struck back. He drove them from Bear Island, recaptured Deepwood Motte, and shattered their raiding fleet in the Bight. But more threats came from beyond. News came from the Wall. Lord Commander Mormont was dead. Whispers of walking corpses spread. Most dismissed them. Jon did not. The Night's Watch, weakened and fractured, could not stand long. And then the unthinkable happened. The Wall fell. The wildlings came with giants, mammoths, and siege weapons. The Watch held for a time, but they were outmatched. Then came the Lannisters. Kevan Lannister arrived from the south with siege engines and fire. Castle Black was destroyed. The few surviving brothers of the Watch knelt to King Joffrey or died. In that moment, the ancient magic of the Wall died with them, and something older stirred. With the magic broken, the others came. They poured over the ruins of the Wall, raising the dead as they passed. Entire villages vanished. Jon, still in Winterfell, received the first reports with disbelief. Then dread. "We must hold Winterfell," he told Catelyn. "If Winterfell falls, the North dies." Robb, hearing of the chaos, turned his armies north. He left the Riverlands behind to fend for themselves, knowing that if the North fell, nothing else would matter. There was one hope left. Catelyn spoke of Daenerys Targaryen. "She is Rhaegar's sister. She commands dragons, and she fights for the people." Robb was skeptical, but Jon volunteered. "She has a claim to the throne, and I may be the key to her trust." When Jon reached Meereen, Daenerys was guarded. She had lost too much to believe easily, but when her dragon Regal approached Jon and did not burn him, she began to listen. Catelyn presented Ned's letter, Lyanna's truth, and Jon's oath. He wants no throne. He wants peace. Daenerys agreed to an alliance. She would fight beside them. The storm rolled over Winterfell. Snow fell thick as death. Jon, Daenerys, and Robb stood atop the walls, gazing into a white abyss. The dead came in waves. Whites, walkers, giant corpses with blue eyes. Robb led from the front, Grey Wind at his side. Cotter Pike led Ironborn and wildlings in defense of the gates. Jon and Daenerys burned the field with dragonfire, but the Night King did not fall. Drogon was wounded. Daenerys fell from his back. Jon leapt into the fray. Longclaw clashed against the Night King's blade. While the Night King was occupied with Jon, Daenerys stabbed him in the back with the same dagger that once threatened Bran. The Night King shattered, and the dead fell. With the North saved, Daenerys and Robb united their forces. Jon renounced all claim to any throne. Daenerys took King's Landing. Robb ruled the North as king, and Jon was named his heir not for blood, but for honor. Peace returned, born from fire and ice, and for the first time in a long while, the realm remembered that truth, not war, makes the strongest kings.